Home Secretary, I can appreciate this has been a long morning for you, and you've had a lot of abuse hurled at you. And I suppose a lot of that, Home Secretary, is about this term legacy figures, that some special advisor has said to you, look, here's how we just call the figures legacy figures, therefore then they've got nothing to do with us. It was all to do with Boris Johnson and Liz Truss.
No, this is about, Eamon, good morning. This is about the applications that came in before we changed the criteria for which we assess asylum applications. So before the 28th of June 2022, they are being assessed under old, actually slightly more generous criteria. And we committed to processing all of those applications. We've done that. We completed that last year. The vast majority have had a final decision. A small number of the more complicated cases where there are disputes or maybe security concerns have still got a bit of further work. But we've done the processing of all those applications. And indeed, last year we processed 112,000 applications, both legacy and current. And we've got much slicker processes, so we'll be able to process much more quickly going into this year.
Forgive me to nitpick, but people at home will take this seriously. You know, you talk about the processing, and I understand that you've processed this 112,000 cases, but you're talking about some 4,500. Have we still got the Home Secretary there? We're talking about this 4,500 that are being reviewed. That's not clearing the backlog, is it? Just to be clear. You might process them.
The backlog were of applications that hadn't been processed at all. And those people, we have a duty to house them, to support them financially. And that was one of the reasons why we had those asylum hotels. It was costing us a huge amount of money. So clearing that backlog, processing those applications is incredibly important. We have processed every single one of those applications. In the vast majority, a final decision has been made. And in a small number, there are complications. But the point is, we have now got a much, much faster process, which is why 50 hotels that were being used for housing asylum seekers are now being given back to the commercial world. So they can be put back into use as hotels. We're reducing the need to accommodate asylum seekers, and we'll be processing much more quickly going through 2024.
And you say that the vast majority of those decisions have been taken, and I understand it's 2/3 of those applications have been accepted. Can you tell me this morning how many of that 1/3 that have been rejected have so far been deported?
Well, last year we sent back over 22,000 people. The number of returns, both what we call voluntary returns, where we basically said to people, you have no right to be here, you need to leave. Those numbers have increased by 66%. And enforced returns, what people think of perhaps as deportation, it's not quite the same thing, but that's what people think of. Those have also increased by 2/3 as well.
But that's not telling me how many of the people that you've accepted, or sorry, the ones that you've rejected, how many of those have actually left the country, or are they all still here in the UK, is my point.
No, so whilst I can't say of any individual cohort, that's why I'm a bit uncomfortable saying of those people.
Okay.
But the fact is, we are now sending back 66% more people in 2023 than we did in 2022. We're reducing the number of people who are arriving here in the first place. We've reduced small boats arrivals by 36%. We're processing more quickly. So both on preventing people getting here, processing them quickly, sending them home, we're improving our performance in every single one of those areas of work.
But with all due respect, Home Secretary, the migrant always seems to hold the trump card, because if they don't have documentation that identifies them, then you can't send them back anywhere, can you?
Well, look, we recognise that there are people that try and game the system. Many of the people seeking asylum do so in the right way. Sadly, many of them don't. And indeed, the criminal gangs often coach people in how to try and game the system. But we're very, very conscious of that. We work very, very hard to validate claims. And we make sure that where people don't have a right to be here, we are returning them. And when the Rwanda scheme is in place, that's why I'm so committed to delivering on that, and the Illegal Migration Act is fully in force, anyone that comes here illegally will be removed either to their country of origin, if it's safe, or to a safe third country like Rwanda, if their home country is not safe, putting an even greater disincentive for people trying to game the system.
But the bottom...
part of a wider plan, and we are determined to crack down on it.
But the bottom line is, you've just got to make it economically unviable. You've got to break the profit margin, the money-making margin in all of this for anything to be successful. Do you know how you would do that?
So, Eamon, you are absolutely right. The sad truth is that for the people smugglers, these people, these asylum seekers, a number of them are economic migrants. They are just a product, and we have got to hit their business model, which is one of the reasons why we're working with the countries in Europe and including Turkey, where the boats and the engines are being smuggled through. We're addressing illegal payments. We are attacking the business model of these people smugglers. That's how we'll stop the boats. We'll stop the boats by making it impossible for these people smugglers to make money.
And I know you've made the claim this morning on the airwaves that you will have no migrant crossings by the end of 2024. Do you stand by that on GBNews for us this morning?
Well, we are committed to stopping the boats. We are absolutely going to stop the boats. That's the commitment the Prime Minister made. We have seen real progress on this. And in fact, the figures overall last year are down by 36%. In the back half of last year, they're down by 44%. Sorry, 45%. So we're increasing the pace.
Well, also you saw bad weather.
We're determined to stop the boats.
I don't want to rain on your parade, if you'll forgive but you know, you can't deny, and this is not my words, this is not my opinion, this is what the Immigration Services Union have said, and this is what border staff have also said, is that those figures will rise next year.
So I hugely respect the union officials' job in representing the interests of their members. They are not the people on whom we rely for forecasts. And the point is, it is the hard work of Border Force officials and the National Crime Agency and the diplomats in Europe working together that have driven these figures down. And actually, the number of good sailing days, we call them, red days, because they're the days of highest risk of people smuggling. Actually, this year was pretty much the same as last year. 106 days this year, 106 days in 2023, 102 days in 2022. So the weather is largely the same year on year. And of course, there's weather all across Europe, and in Europe, the numbers are up by 80%, just as we brought them down by 36% in the UK.
Can I just lastly ask you about the numbers of these people who've put in these applications, these asylum seekers, who have withdrawn from the system? That helps your figures significantly, but it doesn't help us here as a society. We don't know who we've got, where they've come from, whether they're a risk to us, where their accommodation is, what demand they're putting on the state. And that is a significant chunk, is it not, of this 112,000 cases that you've cleared?
No, so when an application is withdrawn for whatever reason, that person permanently loses the right to stay in the UK. That means they are no longer accommodated by the UK. There is no financial support to them.
But you don't know
they try and sneak into the illicit economy. We go looking for them, and when we find them, we remove them from the UK, and we've increased the number of enforcement raids where we go and look for people working illegally, and when we find them, we remove them from the.
When you find them, that's the key comment
not
there.
in the figures of people that we have to look at.
Home Secretary, we've got to remove you now at this stage.
Doing that.
OK, thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you.
The clock has
Appreciate
beaten us, and thank you for this very, very busy day
thank you.
of making time to speak to us. Thank you very much indeed.